and welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Mike Roderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How are you, Sean?
I am doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We're continuing on with our Kali Linux series, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at cracking passwords, I guess. You know, we've been talking about this gaining access phase. We talked about different ways we go about gaining access and kind of the entire process as an overview. Now we're going to take a look at some of the first steps involved in gaining access, and that means getting a password, Sean, right? Somehow we've got to get on the system to start this whole thing.
Yeah, that's definitely what you have to do, is you have to get to that point where you can obtain a password. And fortunately, we've got a multitude of ways of doing that. It's in fact, it's kind of unbelievable the amount of ways you have to do this. In fact, we could say one of the things we have yet to cover is to talk about some of the sniffing tools we have available to us. Some of the stuff that we do over there will actually come right back around and feed back into password cracking again. So we're going to talk about some of the things that will actually help you crack those passwords. So when we get to sniffing, and I say, well, you can grab this off the wire. Well, here's a tool specifically for that. And, you know, it's just crazy type of things they can do. And this is just the stuff out of the box. There's even more you can load in. So yeah, we're going to talk about some of these different ways you can do that. You can crack these different passwords out there. So where we'll take a look at, just to give you a quick overview of the options that are available, is inside of Kali, which I've pulled up on my screen here. Inside of Kali, I have gone down to the Kali Linux menu and gone under password attacks, and you can see that we have 4 sub-menus underneath there that are designed specifically to do different things with passwords. You can see we have our GPU tools, and we'll worry about those ones. That's a little more powerful class of things. There's our offline attacks. So just look at the sheer number of those that we have. And there are some recognizable names in there. If you look close, you'll see stuff in there like Hashcat. We did mention that in the forensics course. We mentioned that one. Right. We have John and Johnny. Those are actually the same thing, if you can believe it. We talked about John the Ripper as a password cracker over in CEH. Well, that's what those guys are. But the reason why it's in there twice is one of them is a command line. The other one actually will bring up a GUI for you. Okay. So you've got both options. So if you're kind of sitting there jonesing for a GUI at this point, well, we've got one for you, but you're not allowed to use it yet. So there's that. And then you can see Offcrack on there and PW Dump on there, and then there's some stuff for rainbow tables. I mean, you see a lot of utilities in there just for doing offline password cracking. And then we go over to our online attacks, and online attacks, like we said, these are ones that are designed to engage a system directly and extract information from those connections that are active. And so if you look at those, I mean, we've got some really good ones. Some really good ones there. And by the way, some of these things that we see in here are designed specifically to generate word lists, and they've got unique ways of doing that. And we'll be discussing some of those here in just a bit. But so we have quite a wide range of things there. We see like Medusa, an online password cracker that's designed to engage a system and bust into it that way. We've got Burp Suite. You may recall Burp Suite from when we did our CEH. That's something we can use to view the interaction between a browser and a server and see what the headers are going back and forth, and even modify or even outright drop headers to see how the system reacts to it. So we've got that making an appearance. Plus other ones in there. I mean, you can even see that we have a Cisco tool in there. So if you have Cisco devices, they've come to play with those ones too. Like I said, this Kali is has pretty much got a lot of bases covered, for you. Some of these things, you're going to have a little more than the knowledge than we can teach you right here. I mean, Cisco stuff. This isn't a Cisco class, so you'd really have to know the Cisco stuff to know how to use the Cisco auditing tool, but it is there. Nice. So that's the good thing. And then we've got this patch and the hash type of attacks, which is something that we'll worry about. This is one that's been around for about 15 plus years, and so we'll talk about that a little more as we go further. But those are your main things for doing password attacks. So that's our pull down. We'll go through some of these things with you, and we'll show you what they do, and you'll see what the options are, and then you can decide how you're going to go ahead and use them yourself.
Nice. So we've got a lot of different tools, and really it comes down to, am I doing this offline attack or online attack? Kind of gears me towards which tool I'm using, right? And in an offline attack, I need something. I need either like a hash of their password. I've either stolen like a SAM file or gotten to their account database, or maybe intercepted some hashes going across the network like you're talking about with sniffers. Online attacks, now we're interacting with that system, so a different set of tools, because I don't have the hash of the password that I can work against with my algorithms and things like that, right? I've got to submit a password and click enter and see what happens, right? So those kind of tools are geared more towards that. That's where those word lists come into play, because you have to have something to fill in those fields and see what happens. You're basically doing password guessing without online stuff. Online too, you got to worry about policies, right? Whereas offline, I don't have to worry about that so much.
Yeah, it becomes there's different issues involved when you do offline, and policy would be, if you're talking about account lockouts and stuff like that, then yeah, definitely that moves out of the picture because you're not directly engaging the system. So that's a big benefit of it. If you try to engage a system directly, yeah, policies are something that is very commonly just gonna stop you dead in your tracks. So we want to kind of stay away from those if we have another option, or if we know it's going to take a while. If you know that password's probably low-hanging fruit and you can get it pretty quickly, then online is just fine. So I mean, I'm not saying stay away from them. That's why I want to kind of avoid doing. It's like, don't ever use that. No, everything has its time, and it's just recognizing when a good time to use it is.
And probably, during your enumeration, if you've gotten a hold of their policies, you might know that, hey, they locked the account after 5 attempts, and it resets that account lockout counter after 30 minutes. So you could use your tool to say, okay, do 4 guesses, wait 40 minutes. Do 4 more guesses, wait 40 minutes, right? And never actually lock the system out.
Yes. Yeah. And you can definitely manipulate it. You'll see in some of these password sniffers, password crackers, you'll see that they do have switches in there to adjust the timing. So they haven't kind of left you out in the cold on that. So you can do stuff to alter that to kind of get around certain things.
Nice.
Something else worth mentioning in here: not all the tools that would be useful for password cracking are in the exact same place. If you go through and got to remember where this actually is, because this is one of the problems, with
Too
this
many
is that
menus.
it's like, where was that again? We have in here we have a tool that is used for I don't necessarily, I guess, need to really dig it out, but we do have a tool in here that's specifically used for doing policy enumeration.
Okay.
So if you can maybe get into a system in some way, shape, or form, or at least find maybe that they're doing that, they have those null session capability. If it's a Windows box and you're able to get a null session out of that, and remember, there was tools we saw yesterday, able to get a null session, you can actually extract some of that policy information out of that system, and that may tell you, the stuff that you're talking about, right, as far as what you might need to do to refine your attack a bit more to keep it from being thwarted.
Nice.
So they've got you covered on that. So we've got plenty of things available to us to kind of get around some of these things.
So where do we want to start? We want to talk about offline. Sean, if we're doing an offline attack, so that means I have Well, first, I guess we should talk about, if we're doing an offline attack, I've got to have something to feed this program, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a copy of the SAM file, and then we got tools available to go grab that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we can put this away for a second just to kind of discuss what we've got going on here as far as a SAM file goes. Just a quick review for all of you, because this is something that is used in a lot of these password crackers. Is they do require a copy of the SAM file, and what the SAM file is, Security Accounts Manager. In a Windows system, it's that local database that sits there and stores, information on users and groups and all that type of stuff.
And
yeah,
local groups.
It's got all those things in there. So many of these tools like OffCrack and and LSA, the LSA dump and PW dump and a few other ones, they will specifically ask for that file, and they'll scan the file and then pull stuff out of it for you and say, this is what I found. They'll kind of make sense of all of that for you. Now, the issue there is you have to get a hold of that SAM file to be able to do that. And so the question is, how do you get a hold of that SAM file? Well, the SAM file, to get a hold of it, you've got, you've got some options. Probably the most common way to do it is to, or one of the more common ways to do it, I guess I should say, is to shut down the system and to boot off of another piece of media and just copy the file off of there. Just go and grab it and boom, and then you've got the file and you can take it over and analyze it in a program like this. But you could potentially, do a system state, like a system state backup, stuff like some of those backups will actually grab it. And there are some tools that can actually grab it while the system's on. But you might want to be careful with those, because that could be more trouble than it's worth. Some of the tools that do that, due to the way they work, they're finding little loopholes and openings in Windows to get around that, to be able to break that exclusive access and get a copy of it. Well, if it's find a way to get around it, there's a potential that when it gets around it, to get a copy, it breaks something or corrupts something. Now you got a system that is in a bad way,
right.
And so you've got to figure out. Now you got that to figure out, because that's a dead giveaway if you did something. The system's all blue screened.
I got your SAM file, so I got all your local accounts and passwords, but your system is blue screened and I can't really access it anymore. Yeah, and the big problem is that file, for those of you that aren't aware, that file is locked, right, by Windows. So if you just browse that location I threw up in the chat room, C:\Windows system32 config, that's where you're going to find that SAM file. But if you try to just browse to it and grab it, it's locked. It's in use by system in Windows. So that's what Sean's saying. You boot to another alternate operating system. Throw in your Kali Linux thumb drive, right? Throw it in there, boot the system to that. Now you can browse that hard drive if the system's not in use, and you should be able to get a copy of that file. Or like I said, if you're lucky and you found one of their backups and you can figure out how to mount that, you can go in there and grab that from a backup, which is a kind of a sneaky way to get around it too.
Yeah, you've definitely got you definitely have methods to get around getting that SAM file. So do remember that you can get that thing and use it with these offline password crackers. So that's the first thing that we want to make sure that we are clear on. Once we've got that clear, what options do we have? Now, I kind of refrained from actively breaking a password right here in front of you, because that process can take some time. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat this as, hey, we've to kind of give you an idea of what the things, the steps you go through to actually grab that information. So things we can do to make this to retrieve information. We have several tools that can help us out with that. We have, for example, for a SAM file, we have, like I said, OffCrack is one that will do that. OffCrack is going to have a GUI for it, and all you have to do is just load the SAM file into that, and it will start analyzing it and seeing what it can return back to you. So that's definitely one way you could you could obtain a password out of that. And then there's other ones. The John the Ripper will actually do that too. So you can grab a John the Ripper, and it will start analyzing that SAM file, see if it can extract stuff out of it. And by the way, when you look at those two, like I said, one's the GUI and one is not. If you look at those two, Johnny is actually the one that opens up the GUI. So it does the same thing. It's pretty much the same stuff still running in the background. Someone just threw a GUI on it and says, "Well, there you go."
Nice.
You know, for all the people that were complaining, going, "Oh, there's no GUI." It's like, "Shut up, there's a GUI." Okay, leave us
Thank you very
alone.
much.
Yeah. So that's what we have, going on with that. That's a good question. Can you get to the SAM through the registry?
You can, but it's not. I was trying to, because I did it on my machine just to see if I could go in there and get it. And you get into the SAM key. It's HKey local machine SAM. You get in there, and there's really nothing to find in there. So I assume it's reading from that file as necessary. I didn't dive too much deeper than that. I don't think there's a way you can go in there and read it out of there directly, or just get the hash values from there. I could be wrong though. I'll work on that for you, Ben, and see if I can find a way to do that though.
Yeah, it would be pretty tough to do it that way, but yeah, you could. There's ways to do it when it's on, but like I said, those might be a little more risky. But once you've got command of it, I don't know, maybe you could do it without having too much of a problem. Yeah. The things you kind of want to stay away from when you're trying to extract stuff or tamper with stuff in the SAM relating to passwords and all that stuff is that anything that involves syskey, you kind of want to just give that like a wide berth on that, because if you tamper with the syskey and it breaks or something goofy happens to it, that system's it's jacked up at that point. You're going to have some serious problems. I've seen it done. In fact, some of these tools, like one of the one we mentioned in CEH, we mentioned using the Trinity Rescue Kit that you could boot off of and modify. It's actually going into the SAM database and doing something related to what we're doing. It's not trying to extract the password. It's actually It's actually going in and overwriting the password with a new one. So that's how it works. But one of the things it offers you is it says, "Do you want to disable syskey?" And it will ask that no matter what version of Windows you're on. It says if it has syskey, and it's going to ask you, "Do you want to disable syskey?" If you do that, they give you a warning, by the way. I'll tell you, if you turn this off, it says, "We're not responsible for anything that happens from this point forward." If you continue with it, it could actually permanently disable that account or cause you something really crazy to happen, and therefore that account's no longer any good, and it could do even worse. So you definitely want to be careful when doing some of these little workarounds like that. So as far as tools that will grab and work with the SAM file, like I said, we have Offcrack. On the Windows side, by the way, Loftcrack will do it too. So Loftcrack will do that. We also have the LSA dump, PW dump will do that. They will go out there and look at the SAM file. So that's just a few of them. They also have PW dump 2. They have SAM dump 2. Those will just ask for that, and you'll tell it here's the actual SAM file, and it will work its magic on it. And you may have to do some additional configuration on it, but it's pretty much straightforward. But it could take some time. Don't expect it to be like, hey, done, see you later. It's not going to be that quick unless someone's got a really simple password. It's going to take some time to do that. So you could be turning it on and coming back, in a few hours to actually get your result. But you typically will get it though. So any case, that's the SAM file ones. Like I said, I mentioned John the Ripper. Some other ones I think are just really important to mention because I could definitely see them coming up. Is I put two tools on my list here. I have one called TrueCrack, and this one is actually a really interesting one to look at. What this one does, the reason why I mentioned TrueCrack is this one's designed specifically to target TrueCrypt volumes. So you can go in there and start up TrueCrack, and it will try to recover information out of those TrueCrypt volumes. It'll even try to recover those hidden volumes that we have that we could have hidden inside another TrueCrypt volume. So that's kind of cool. To be able to do that sort of thing.
Do you have that up on your screen for us?
I ran the tool up here. I don't have a TrueCrypt volume, but if you want to take a look at the tool, I've got it up on screen. It's a command line tool. What you would do is you would just run TrueCrack, and then what you do is just tell it, here's the actual file. You can specify, encryption technologies and all that's using. Here's a word list. Remember, we said we can generate a word list. And the reason why I'm not really worrying about the word list quite yet, you can get the word list, you can download those things from online. You don't have to create them yourself. The reason why you might create them yourself is because you need to have something specific to that environment, or something just there that is going to help you out better than grabbing something that's available to everyone and kind of generic. So that's why I'm not really too worried about it. You can download it, but we'll show how to actually create your own, or some methods of creating your own. So once you kind of dump all this stuff in, and you can see it's got plenty of options to it, just type it in and let it go, and it will take some time, but usually it's pretty good at breaking into a TrueCrypt volume. So that's kind of a neat thing. So if you need that, I guess
there's still people that use TrueCrypt. I know it's used a lot. So.
Yeah, we saw that when we did one of our other courses. When we were talking about it, I remember there being a few people in here that said they still use it, even though there's all these vulnerability. There was that vulnerability that they said that is in it. People have kind of said, okay, well, that's fine. It's not a big enough deal, or it just hasn't proven to be a problem.
Right, exactly. So you still might run into that out there. So we got a lot of different tools we can use when we're looking at doing that offline cracking. The big thing is getting a hold of that SAM file, trying to use one of these tools to access that PW dump or something like that, and that kind of gives you your source, right? Because these tools need input. They need something to work on, something to crack. So that SAM file or those hash values, that's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. And we can do the SAM file. We saw that if they have something locked up in a TrueCrypt volume, we can grab it. We also have one that is an interesting one, is this fcrack zip. That one you can pretty much grab. You can kind of assume from those last few letters what it's doing. This one's designed specifically to crack zip files, and people use those all the time. And you see people that still put passwords on them, which isn't a bad thing, but it's definitely not something that's really going to stop someone that is really determined. And this has got a tool that's specifically designed to bust a zip file. Might take some time, but like I said, it will do it. So that's a tool specifically designed for that purpose. But one of the things I kind of want to talk about also here, just why we've got a few moments left, is I want to talk about, well, if you let's say you have a hash and you want to do an offline crack on that. I mean, because we said one of the offline attacks that we're just not going to set up here is a rainbow table. One of the things we said is, if you remember from CEH, where rainbow table generates all the possible combinations of all the possible hashes off of every possible combination of characters within a certain range if you tell it. So, and it uses a hashing algorithm and all that good stuff to create that. Well, what do you do if you have multiple rainbow tables and you want to figure out, what hashing algorithm is used to create that hash? So you could either run it against the right rainbow table, or maybe you've got a hash and you want to learn something about that system. Maybe you can learn what hashing algorithms it's using. So I'm gonna cheat just a little bit here. I am going to, well, I've got this online MD5 generator. and it's one that we've seen before. What I'm going to do in here is I am going to say, okay, this is a test password. I'll call it that, and I'm going to take that and say it's MD5, and it generated that hash on the fly. Okay, so you don't need to worry about what the hash specifically is. I mean, you can look at it if you want. That's not the part of the demo I'm really interested in. What we can do is if we can go under Kali Linux and password attacks and offline attacks, and you'll see this hash identifier tool. What I can do is I can go over here and I copied it. I should be able to paste my hash right in there and hit enter, and it analyzed it and it spit out a bunch of stuff, but that scrolled by pretty quickly. So let's see what it's actually telling us. Well, there's my hash. It told me right up top it's MD5, and that tells me, oh, it could be related to this MD4 because the second choice it has, and then it goes down the list saying these are other ones that I can check against, but those are just not don't fit as well as an MD5 does. Nice. So in this case, what we've done in a quick and easy move here is we have a way of identifying what was used to create a specific hash. It can tell that. So that I think is just a really neat thing, because it can tell you maybe heck, just this hash identifier tool outside of passwords. Maybe if you were able to extract hashes from something, no matter what it was on a system, you want to learn maybe how that person configured it and what that back end looks like. You could use this to say, okay, grab one of their hashes. Oh, this is what they're using. So now I've got a little idea of maybe some other configuration settings in there. So that would be very handy for that. And I'll tell you something else to add on to here, really kind of quickly here, is if I didn't mention this in the CEH, which I don't think I did. If you go to, there's a website called the Hacker Warehouse. If you go over here, this is to show you, because I also see in the chat room about not creating your own list of a word list out there. It's probably not worth it. Well, that can be kind of questionable if it's worth it or not. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't. But it's taking a little bit of time, but whatever. Well, what we have, what you can buy off the Hacker Warehouse is it has a hard drive you can buy for about $150 off there that contains pre-made rainbow tables. So if you really need it, it's got it right there, and it's got it within a certain range, and it's got all the different values and everything stuck in there already. So all you got to do is really plug it in and point it to it and let it rock and roll. They're making this as easy as possible, and that's not even including the stuff they have online already, where you can pretty much do a variation of what I just did and just take that hash and dump it into a form on a website and hit submit, and it'll tell you right away what was used to create that, because someone's already done it.
Absolutely, yeah. I would agree there with Timothy. If you're talking about rainbow tables, absolutely, you're much better off going and finding someone that's already gone through the trouble of hashing all these different possibilities, because those things are huge and they take forever to generate. Now, if you're talking about a dictionary file, if we're talking about password guessing, in that case, I love making my own list because I can be very specific. I've also got all these different lists that I've compiled over the years. Like one is Klingon words, because there's a lot of geeks out there that use Klingon as their password. They think nobody's going to guess that.
What you talking about, Willis?
I know, right? So I do make my own dictionary files, one word on each line, and every list I find, I just append to the end of my list. Get this huge list of all the common French first names, Klingon words, Star Wars phrases, and Star Trek, things like that. You're not going to find it. So those are the kind of things that I like doing in the dictionary files for the password guessing. Now, when it comes to breaking hashes, I'm not going to build my own rainbow table. I don't have enough processing power or time to wait for that.
It definitely takes some time. I was able to pull this up on my screen. I just opened up another browser outside that virtual environment. There you go. There's your Rainbow Tables hard drive, 2 terabytes, which gives you an idea of how big these Rainbow Tables can get. there's all the different rainbow tables that it possesses. So those are all little databases that you could use, and it's got them with different algorithms, different bits and everything else. So you can just buy this and be ready to do whatever you need to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another comparison there with the rainbow tables, we've got their hash value. Somehow we've used PWDump or something like that. We've got the hashed version of their password. If I'm doing online password guessing, I don't have that, right? I don't have their hash. I've got a form that says username and password, and I got to enter data into that. And I'm not entering hash values. I'm entering possible passwords. That's why I've got to have that password list. And I think it's good to generate those. You can definitely start with some you find online and start compiling them up and putting them together to build a massive list. And these computers will rifle through those dictionary files in minutes.
Yeah, it's no problem to get a lot of this stuff or do a lot of this stuff. But yeah, Rainbow Tables is the exception. Going to take some time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more to talk about when it comes to password guess or password cracking, but we're out of time for this episode. So for now, we hope you guys have enjoyed watching this one. Signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you next time.